Cooley, we're going to get to the Mitch Marner conversation. I mentioned off the top, you were in Edmonton. How cool was that atmosphere? I got a chance last year to go to some games. It gave me that feel of wanting it in Toronto one day, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people in many Canadian cities, especially one that hasn't had the final since black and white television, you know? And what a building. They got it right with a practice facility. Obviously, it's Edmonton, so the land isn't as expensive, so they have space, you know, to be able to mingle and move around. You go to some of the concessions, and there's nobody in line. Not that it's not people there, but they made enough so you're not waiting. So they're always getting their cha-ching. And they've done a great job with the building. The fans are unbelievable. And the atmosphere was, when Corey Perry scored, that's as loud as, I mean, I go back to Vancouver, Four Nations, in terms of just craziness. But they're up against it right now. I mean, Florida is the better team, and some would believe the end is near unless something changes big as it relates to the bottom depth on the Oilers.
Oof, that would be a tough bounce for, you think of those two superstars in McDavid and Draisaitl to get there twice and get so close and not have one at the end of the day. It's tough to think of, but to relate that to the Toronto Maple Leafs, we've seen them against this best team in the world, as you just called them. I've been calling them that for a while now, driving them to Game 7. The Oilers might not even get them to that. Do you compare at all the series that the Leafs had against the Panthers and how close they might be to being one of the teams that could be in a final soon?
That's a great question. I mean, the optimistic person says, well, maybe the Leafs are the third best team in the NHL. And if the Oilers lose tonight, the Leafs gave Florida the hardest run that they've had. I think from listening to Brad Treliving, I think what happens in this series is not going to change what he wants to do in terms of the DNA. The Leafs are a really, really good team. They're one of the best regular season teams in the last 9 years. But that gets you bupkis. So I think there's something to take. They're not blowing this up. It's about making, well, I mean, if Marner's Huberdeau, it's getting their Tkachuk, if you want to look at it in that regard. So I think there's things that the roster needs to tweak. I think there's a lot of things that are really good. They got goaltending. They got a pretty good defense. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Morgan Riley and, of course, with the UFAs up front. But when you lose a Mitch Marner, it's like the old adage about Thomas Kaberle and the Pat Quinn administration. When they lost Kaberle, they went, we need a puck-moving defenseman. Doesn't have to be that big or physical. Help out on the guy we just traded. So where are you going to replace the third best right winger in the NHL? But maybe it is time. Like that. That's how awkward this is. You lose him. Who's going to replace him? Are you going to get worse? And so all this is in play right now over the next 2 weeks, gentlemen.
Cooley, you've been around the game for a long time. Like, do you remember a situation similar to this one, like Mitch Marner? Like, I know people are trying to draw comps to John Tavares. I don't view it that way, but is there a memory that comes up for you of like a similar situation?
It's not like John. That's different. This is a Toronto guy leaving because of what's happened in terms of losing, how he's been treated, the stuff about the social media and the police and everything else is just absolute garbage. I think. Whatever people are doing, there's respect, there's privacy, there's being chill. You can be upset, you can throw a brick at the TV, but then you have to move on. So I think it's time. And if Mitch made the decision first, it's weird because Rick Nash didn't want to come to Toronto. There's people that didn't want to live in the circus, but it's weird to have someone already here who's got basically Hall of Fame type credentials, is a member of Team Canada, is going to be on the Olympic team and wants out. This is the complete opposite to anything we've seen. What we have seen before is Curtis Joseph comes to help save the 98-99 Leafs and to turn the franchise around. Gary Roberts comes, Joe Nieuwendyk comes, and the list goes on and on. Not the other way around. So this is really, really weird. And because he's a free agent at the most advantageous, richest time in the history of the game, if he really wants to, he can make more money than anybody else, if he's going to gamble and go to a tier 2 Utah or somebody else that really wants to make a bigger splash. If it's Vegas to win, which seems most realistic to me, it's different, man. Nothing in the history. You used to be a free agent at 32. Remember, you had to be in the league 14 years. Oh, I'm a free agent. I'm Dale Howardchuk. I'm leaving. Not now. This is a totally different situation. And the complete opposite, gentlemen, of what we've ever seen before.
And by all accounts, that's exactly what he's going to do, Cooley. You talked about some of the heat he's taken, and obviously much of it very unjustified and ridiculous, but it shows you the passion and the state of Leafs Nation with him right now. How do you think he's going to be remembered and even received when he comes back here? Is his legacy taking a hit, or do you think that'll kind of go away as time moves on?
I mean, it's still Toronto. I think that it's like, so what did he do wrong? They didn't win. He wants to leave. That's his choice. How is he treated by some of the other idiots? I mean, that comes into play. He was never waiving the no trade at the deadline to make room for Mikko Rantanen. That was never an option. That was just courtesy because you're going to find out anyway. So he might as well throw it in front of you. So why would he make a decision then in March when he can make a decision now in June and going into July? And instead of it being just Carolina now, it's Carolina. It's for sure going to be Vegas. It could be Dallas. It could be Los Angeles. All that other stuff. I think certain aspects of it, people were more mad, I think, at the end with Matt Sundin. Just off the top of my head, I'm like, come on, Matt, do us a favor. He never wanted to leave anyway until he was pushed into Vancouver. So in this situation, it's his right. It didn't work out. And there are people that kind of want to change and want people like him and maybe even John to move on. So I think it's bits and bytes. Put your hand in, pull it out. Everybody is in this category. There's a lot of different options here in terms of legacy and booing or whatever. People get over it. They'll do the video thing, blah, 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 and you move on. So I don't think it's going to be as harsh as he's not going to get treated in Toronto the way Tavares was on the island, put it that way. I don't think there's that kind of anger. I might be wrong. I don't feel it, and I don't see it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Scotiabank Arena is a library, too. You can't forget about that. People have no clue who the guy is because they don't actually watch him play hockey. But I think it's unprecedented waters, Cooley. It strikes me like you can't fire me because I quit. I don't know. Like, I just think it made too much sense for the Maple Leafs to move on all season long. And I've been consistent in saying this is not about Mitch Marner. It's more so about reallocating that money elsewhere and balancing out your roster. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's more about having... Even going back to the Quinn administration, the 1 year that the Leafs were a team built for the playoffs. So they didn't have a great regular season, but they had the Greens and the Tuckers and those types of players. And they did pretty good in the playoffs. Now, they didn't win the Stanley Cup. They didn't get to the conference final, I don't think, that year. They might have the year before. But the idea was, you know what? We're too pretty, and we have to be gritty when it really, really matters. Well, fast forward to this administration, and we would probably say the same type of thing. And I don't think any of this is personal. I really don't. It's a matter of saying 11 million, maybe that's a 6 and a 5, two different players. You know, the guys that Florida has and are winning with right now. Where are you going to get the Bennetts and Marchands of the world? You have to be creative. Maybe it is a Mason Marchment and something else. And I'm not saying a Nikolai Ehlers. Maybe their idea is 2 of a B minus or a B is better than 1 A plus or 1 A minus that they have in Mitch Marner. It's complicated, though, but I think that if he struck first, then that's fine. It felt like it was time, that this was kind of the last dance for this group as a whole, and it didn't work again. As close as they came, and yes, it was Florida, and they were up 3-1 in the second period, but they still lost, which means changes are coming, and 16 is at the top of it.
And you mentioned, Cooley, some of those free agents and how they're going to change their roster, and inevitably they need to replace some of the things that Mitch Marner does. I feel like the Bennett ship is kind of, I just don't hold a lot of hope into that, but Marchand seems very possible still. What's your take on Marchand hitting the free agent market and maybe Toronto having a chance at him?
Yeah, I think realistic, and I don't like to do an autopsy on the team that's about to win the cup, but they got 3 guys. They're not going to keep all 3, I don't think. They're not going to lose all 3. So it feels like Bennett's staying for sure. What they do with Ekblad now that they have Seth Jones, and Marchand wants to play till he's 40, so it's a 3-year deal. So the over-under is probably 1.5 of Florida, keeping those 3 guys. And if it is, again, we're spitballing here. If it is a Marchment, Dallas wants to move off him and or Robertson, or maybe both, and then it's a Marchand, then that's going to change the Leafs. You're going to have to gamble on a 38, 39, 40-year-old for 3 years of playoff hockey and a Mason Marchment to kind of give you with another piece or two, Easton Counter or whatever ends up coming in the pipeline, which is not a lot, and kind of mix and matching. And maybe those two type players in your top 6 or top 9 give you a better chance to win against a team like Florida in a year from now in the second round. So that's what they're discussing right now in the Leaf Situation Room, as we are with you guys, because nobody knows who's right and who's wrong until 350 days from now. But clearly what was happening wasn't working. So the definition of insanity, blah, blah, blah. Some would argue that they've rolled it back too much, that they should have, could have, would have made this decision, guys, a year ago. But they didn't. We're here now.
Yeah, I would say 5 years ago, I would have disbanded the core 4, yet here we are in 2025. Kouleas, we've been joking, well, I have at least the last little while, about the captain of the Edmonton Oilers. Is there any reason in your mind to suggest this guy's not re-signing this summer in Edmonton, Connor McDavid?
Well, I don't know. The insiders make it sound like when the year's over, there'll be an extension that's as big as he wants it to be. Is he going to Sidney Crosby leave money on the table so he gets 16? Leon gets 14. That's 30 of 95.5. And as the cap goes up. But of course, if we had a Monday morning chat and we met, in the Situation Room, the first thing you do is you sit down and say, okay, just to be clear, just confirm to me that McDavid is staying. He's staying? Okay, that's off the... If he's not, or if anybody knows anything, accidentally speed dialing, the agent, then you have to know that. Every team in the league has to know that moving forward, especially Toronto, as it relates to what may or may not be in the cards. People tell me, talk to the hand, that's never happening. Okay, as soon as you have that option off the table, it's off the table. Then you look at other things. Austin Matthews' future, staying and going. How does he feel? Does he want to stay? Everything should be, why start a conversation with no? The conversation should be best idea wins, okay, and it starts with 97. I would think the odds are 97% that he's staying. I don't know. I haven't talked to him, and the insiders talk to the agents, and there's a Jeff Jackson connection and everything else, so I would assume that he's staying. But just confirm that before you spend monies on other players.
Yeah, it will be interesting. Another interesting thing is John Tavares' future. I mean, Tree Living talked about changing the DNA of this team and you blow up the core, whatever. But by all accounts, he had a hell of a year. He's a heck of a player, a high hockey IQ, cap's going up. His role may slip down eventually to the third line, which I think he'd be a hell of a third line center. But people are split on this. What's your take on John Tavares and his future with the Maple Leafs?
I'm more on keeping him at the right price. And in this UFA world, you've got the beach house or the closest house to the water in this year's crop, then you're going to get the money. Obviously, we believe that he's from here, his wife's from here, his kids, the GTHL, all that stuff. So what does that mean? 555-666-777. Brock Nelson just signed. Who's a better player as they age older? I wouldn't say age out yet. And he did have a great year last year. But if you spend it and he falls from 38 to 17, is that really going to happen? Is it a year for sure at second, a year second or third, and the third of the 3-year deal at the third line center spot? I think that makes sense, and I think there's a right number there. And again, if not John, then who? Then you're going to pay whom to be the third line center, second line center? Where are you going to get 38 goals and 5 in the playoffs from? Puck battles 1. Face off to start the power play. So I think there's a right number. I joked before, if it was a 4-year deal front loaded, now that the CRA thing is on the shelf, and then he has a Carey Price, Shea Weber back injury in year 4, then, you could have your cake and eat it too. But I don't want to get into the doctors and CBA and have Bill Daly call me and everything else. I think the realistic conversation is second line center for next year, maybe the year after, and then sliding to the third on the 3-year deal. But I think it's really the money. I think it's really the money. And if you don't think you could win with them, then you don't bring them back. My option is that the only moment in the last 20 years was a John moment. And he's like the other players have had good and not so good moments in the playoffs. But he's a battler, and give me a better option. Again, best idea wins. What's a better option than John right now?
Yeah, I mean, the contrary would be like a Pius Suter. There's not much cooking on the free agent market. I couldn't agree more on that front. I think in general, people are predicting a chaotic next 2 weeks once the cup is handed out, whether it's tonight or Friday. Do you agree with that? And I would say yes, just because of the watered down free agent market.
Yeah. And I think that, remember 2016, they were throwing around 7s and 6s to, Andrew Ladd and Kyle Poso and Milan Lucic and a lot of players. The best deal was 3 years, 10.5 to Eric Stahl, which Bruce Boudreau told me that he helped kind of broker in his time in Minnesota. I think people do have to be careful, and it's a gamble. Sometimes you're doing it for the first few years, and then the manager's like, I might not be around in 6. Anyway, if it doesn't work out in the short term. The players get paid, especially now. 32 teams. They tell me more are on the way. Where are you going to get an Ehlers or Tavares or a Marner or you name it? And maybe that's why 7.5 was the number for Brock Nelson. Maybe the real number should have been 6.75, but for 750, you're going to lose a guy? Nope. McKinnon has his second line center, and you move forward. The players are going to get paid. Show me the money was a famous line. I don't remember from which movie, though.
Yes, you did.
Jerry Maguire, come on.
I'm just kidding.
I know. Hey, you were at that party last year with Pagnotta, and he was there, right? Cuba Gooding Jr. was at the party. Were you there at the All-Star game last year?
I wasn't at that one, but when Carolina won the Cup, I was at that party right in and around the movie. Let's just say there wasn't a lot of Stevie K and movie star love. Let's just leave it at that.
Oh, there's got to be a story in there. Hey, Kouleas, you're the man. Appreciate your time. We'll talk soon, okay?
Whenever you guys want me, I'm here from the basement. If the lighting's good and the pictures are good, then I'm happy.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.